Sorry, my sessions are 5 minutes each. Probably it works for you, but also again, the tool I'm using is proprietary and I've not paid for it, so it only gives me 5 minutes. That's why I have to rush sometimes, but bear with me. So we have created the shader program. Next, we create the square plane, and in creating the square plane, then what we do, we remember the square plane is what eventually will be displayed. We create a buffer that contains the square vertex positions. We define the square vertex position, and we pass the information to the we pass that information eventually to the WebGL so that it can be able to display it on the screen. We build the shape. In other words, here we are building the shape that is going to be displayed, and that shape will be held within the buffer. So again, we use initialize buffers function to do that, and in doing so, we use the create buffer method within the contextualized canvas. So we create the position buffer, and then select that position buffer as the one to apply. That buffer to apply, and the one to apply for this particular context. So we bind it to this particular context, and of course give the positions within which it's supposed to be. So we have now done what is necessary by initiating that buffer. We have created the square plane. The only thing remaining, we have everything defined in it, and we even pass the list of positions here to the WebGL to build the shape, and this is where it does the building of the shape. And once that is done, I'm just doing this in a hurry because of the tool I'm using. Once that is done, then we need now to display that shape on the screen. For us to do that, then we have the draw scene function. What the draw scene function does is to now pull that object. It pulls that object from the buffer into the screen, renders it on the screen. So the first step will be to clear the canvas of the background color. As you can see, the background color. Yes, clear the context, the background color, and up there, I think it's along. The code is actually long, and then after that, of course, it will establish the camera's perspective. You can see we're establishing the camera's perspective to 45 degrees in radians, and then of course we are defining how far the objects are going to be. The farthest object is going to be 100 units from the camera, and the nearest is going to be 0.1 units. Away from the camera, and then from there we define the projection matrix and create the projection matrix, and establish the position of the square plane. We establish the position of the square plane, which is what is defined now within the remaining functions you are seeing now, and is briefly described here. Now we establish the position of the square plane by loading the identity position and translating it away from the camera by 6 units. After that, we bind the square vertex buffer to the attribute the shader is using the vertex position, and we tell the WebGL to pull the data out of it. Finally, draw the object using the draw arrays method you can see here. So it pulls it out, have the offsets necessary and the vertex count, and of course now it does the rendering on the screen. Once it does that, that's what you're seeing here on the screen. And this is the square we've drawn with all that code. It's quite humongous code for such a simple display. It could have been easier with Java, for instance, but remember now we're dealing with web graphics, and and also we are doing it in 3 space. Once we start applying texture and light source and a little bit of animation, then you're going to see what you're talking about, and the difference between this and what you probably do in Java. Although you can still do animation in Java, and the code will be quite long. So the code that has done this kind of display, we'll find it within. I'll be sharing it with you, the draw square, and for purposes of ease of understanding, the draw square folder, I've separated the files. You have the JavaScript file, you have the CSS file, and you have the WebGL draw square file, which has the HTML file. So you can see them from here. You have the CSS file, is a simplistic file, as you can see, including defining how the video will be displayed. There is no video, of course, it's just no animation. Then we also have the draw square JavaScript code. This, remember, I've combined all those codes into one file, eventually into this file that is called the JS file. Those codes you have seen, the functions, main, and the rest are in this code. I'll share it with you. Then the draw square is eventually what renders. Note that there is still some code that you'll be obtaining from CDN, which is the cloud source for this code. We'll be explaining that later. For now, I do hope that will give you some guidance on how to go about it.